shopping or the cell phone. You didn't say that.
I would go organic and vegetarian for a month.
Is that a suggestion from
Yeah,
someone?
it's a suggestion, yeah.
Okay, now let's explain what organic means. What does that mean?
You don't know what organic means?
Every time I ask a question,
I'm just
I
asking.
get this face.
I'm just asking you.
I get this face.
You too intelligent. You and you song.
There's no such thing as being too
you song
intelligent.
you song very exquisite.
Thank you.
you song very intelligent. Is that what it is? Or
What are you talking about? I'm asking you.
No, how do you say
oh,
you speak?
mean the word eloquent?
Yeah. You
or
speak very eloquent.
articulate?
Or you're very articulate.
Mm-hmm. However,
I must
there are
say.
things I don't know.
Organic is where they don't add those fertilizers.
No what do you mean fertilizers? Fertilizers, some fertilizers.
To the
okay.
product.
Do you mean like genetically modified? As in, do you give up those kinds of things, or any trans fats, or anything that's
No. It's all you don't. They don't use. They don't use.
I'm listening.
The person says, "Tell her she look even more beautiful now, if that's possible."
Oh, thank you. Then
no pesticides. That's what I just told you. No pesticides.
How do you know what has pesticides?
It has to be organically certified.
Okay.
Like if you go to Whole Foods
trust
or you go to Trader
TJ,
Joe's.
Yes, you trust when it says organically certified.
Yeah, I gotta trust it.
Okay.
Unless you want to send me to Mexico to make an inspection.
Because like there are people. I met this guy one time in Vietnam, and this is I met 3 guys named Michael there.
And where?
In Vietnam. I went to Vietnam about 4 or 5 years ago.
You go to these weird places, man.
Now, you see, you can
honest
talk about running, but you can't talk about anything else.
What can you do in Vietnam? Tell me what you do in Vietnam.
I was in search of, I got a grant. I wrote a proposal and was granted money to go.
See, no growth hormones, no antibiotics.
Thank you for an answer.
Yeah.
All right, so no genetically modified, no hormones. And what is the other one? It said
no growth hormones, no antibiotics.
No antibiotics.
She said Vietnam is not weird, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Tell him I didn't say it was weird.
What do you do in Vietnam? Like fight a war or something?
You keep talking. Expose yourself. Like I said, some of us know about running and others of us know about other things.
Like there's a Pearl Harbor reincarnation or something?
Pearl Harbor was in Hawaii. It's
I know that.
Yeah, right.
It didn't have to do with the Vietnamese?
No, the
didn't have
Japanese.
Didn't have to when they send these people to Vietnam to play in that war and then they bomb Pearl Harbor?
Anton, please stop. Please don't do this to yourself.
It has something to do with that, seriously?
No. Wait a minute, look at me. You're not serious, are you?
Huh?
You're not serious.
I'm serious. Isn't it when...
Please don't say you're serious.
Isn't that when they send...
See, now...
Is this
you know
when
what?
this...
Now, I'm not going to
this,
make fun of you for not knowing basic historical information. I'm not going to do that. Just like
when was Pearl Harbor in the 60s? When Pearl Harbor in the 60s?
It's the 40s. Oh, my God. Oh.
In the 40s?
So 40s, Ansem.
Okay, so when they bombed Pearl Harbor, wasn't it because U.S. had sent armies to Vietnam and they were killing the Viet Cong? Wasn't that what it was?
I can't believe you're asking this question.
I'm asking you a question.
So, just like, put the phone away.
Okay.
Just like me, not understanding meters and yards and running indoors and outdoors. So you can't get the basic stuff from history down.
So isn't that what it was about?
I don't want to tell you because it's so embarrassing that you don't know, and I would rather just relish in this fact that you don't have this basic.
Isn't that we were fighting a war in a war outside the United States, right? And we were killing people outside.
That's what happens when wars. People get killed.
And they decided to come and bomb Pearl Harbor.
Will you please stop saying that? It's not funny, Anselm.
I'm asking you. What's not funny?
See the look I'm giving you? This is the look you were giving me when I didn't understand what you were talking about by running. Oh, my God. It's like, I understand. This is the look you gave me.
It's the truth.
Do you want me to tell you?
So you really think I don't know?
I don't know. You're scaring me.
You really think I don't know?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's really.
Well, okay, so tell me.
Tell
me, you keep saying that about Pearl Harbor and Vietnam, and so
So let me ask you a question. This is for real now. Did America send troops to Vietnam?
Eventually, yes.
Right?
Before that, they didn't recognize the troops they were sending. It's called mission creep. So you send in advisors first, slowly, and then you build up the number of.
What did Ali say? What did Ali say about Vietnam?
I don't know what he said about it directly because I'm not a quoting person, but I know he refused to go.
Yeah, what did he say?
We're gonna go, fight.
He said, I ain't got no problem with them Viet Congs.
Mm-hmm.
They ain't do me nothing. Why am I going over there to fight them, to kill them?
Yeah, that would be a nice little blurb to put on if we had that queued up. So I was trying to tell you. See how when I'm trying to tell you something, then you distract it with all the rest of the stuff. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, so this guy, I met this Vietnamese guy. So I met 3 guys named Michael in Vietnam.
A Vietnamese named Michael?
I met 3 guys named Michael.
In Vietnam?
Yes.
How could
one was a German guy.
How could it be Vietnamese and have a name like Michael?
One of them was a German guy who I hung out with, who gave me my first, who gave me a copy of The Sopranos because he's like, "You're from New Jersey, you've never seen this," and I was like, "Wow."
A German guy in Vietnam.
German guy. Then there's another guy named Michael I met who worked for the U.S. Embassy installing security cameras, and then the third guy I met named Michael. He was a Vietnamese guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he spoke English, so, he was acting as a tour guide, so he took me around. But pretty much he took me back to his house, and we rode on these motorcycles, and he told me about his diet, and his diet was all cold.
Was all what?
Cold.
Colds?
Yes, C-O-L-D. So none of the food he ate
was hot.
It was hot. Everything was raw. So if you're going to go all, those fruits that, I don't know what they're called for some reason, it's leaving my mind. They're obviously round, but they got those spikes on them and they have a big seed on the inside. You only find them in tropical places. Mm-hmm. So he ate those. He would eat raw beans.
Why did he eat those? Just
because he was just being extremely to the point of, I'm not eating anything that's processed. And part of that process is a cooking situation. So he did refuse to eat anything cooking. It's weird because he took me, these countries where...
He was Vietnamese or was he?
He was Vietnamese. His name was Michael Tim.
Michael Tim?
Also, his name was also Michael.
But let me ask you a question.
Please, Vietnamese and
Pearl
Harbor had nothing
is
to do
your
with it.
real name really Marjorie? Or that was that name that they gave your they stole our names and gave us all these different names?
That is the name that's on my birth certificate, and so.
But is that our true names? I mean, if you go to China, you don't hear a Chinaman named, Michael Smith. If you go to Russia, you don't hear a person named Michael Baryshnikov.
I had I'm sure I told you about this experience in the summer. Mm-hmm. When I was working at this program that was at Princeton, and I had all these Chinese students. And you go around the room and you're looking at the roll, and it's Jing and all these different names that are difficult to pronounce. And there were TAs, teaching assistants, that followed them around. So the TAs, since we only had 3 weeks with them, I didn't have time to learn everybody's name immediately. By the end of the 3rd weeks, I pretty much got it down. So that was Jen, there was Sally, there were Mikes, there's a guy named Frank, a guy named Sam.
From China?
And all these, Jack, John. There was a kid whose name was Green. But then, and I was like, wait a minute. So, there's so much in a name. I really like to get in a conversation about what's in a name.
Oh, it's a lot. It tells you a lot.
Yes, it does. So, but everyone had these American names.
That's how they messed with us and gave us all these European names.
So everyone had an American name. And I asked this kid, I like this girl. And this girl is like all about Apple. I like Apple phones. I like Apple. This was a Chinese girl, 100% straight off the plane for those 3 weeks. And I said, what is your name? Because she called herself Jen. Genesis. There it is. And I says, what is your name? And then she said, what is your name? Covering her mouth. She said, yeah. I said, well, what does your mom call you? She says, my mom calls me Yao Yao. She says, in China, you can't have a one-syllable name by your mother. So she's going to, if it's one syllable, she's going to call you that twice. So her name would be Yao, but her mother calls her Yao Yao. I said, well, where did Jen come from? She says, this name came from my English teacher. I said, well, why do you like it? I says, well, wait a minute. What does Yao mean? I don't know. Look it up. Oh, it means beautiful jade. So why don't you call yourself Jade? I mean, at least if you're going to anglicize your name. And I asked that question in 4 different classes. And their English teachers in China gave them those names, and they wore those names proud. And I almost felt like crying because I'm like, how are you going to throw out? Here you are, Chinese, 100%, one of the oldest civilizations on earth, got the longest written language of anybody. That you could still read Chinese that was written 4,000 years ago. And tell me, why would you throw that away? I was sad, but it was, it was just one of the many realities I learned about people, that they were ready to take on an American name or an English name, Jack, no doubt.
But that's what they did to us. And that's why people.
Well, you know what I mean.
Upset.
I'm sure you've seen many times. If not, that whole Kunta Kinte. Your name is not Kunta; it's Toby.
Oh yeah.
Now,
Kunta
so
Kinte.
those names are forced upon us, but these Chinese students are taking these names willingly and giving up. I had a student he called himself Green, who really liked cartoons. And I'm like, Green? What's your real name? He told me his real name. And I asked what it meant, and the kids in the class started laughing. And I'm like, what did it mean? This kid was really philosophical whenever he spoke. His name meant powerful. I had another kid who was very sweet. His name meant heart. But they all took on these names, Bill and Jack and Bob. I mean, it just amazed me, and I would never have thought.
But can you imagine a person coming from the Caribbean with a name like John Smith?
Yes, of course I can. I've learned a lot about names, and your name pretty much says who you are. But my name, Marjorie Lloyd. I've thought about this because that's what I have to do, and. I would say, unlike, I'm not going to abandon my name, but it's like a scar. It says what happened to me. It says that somebody was kidnapped hundreds of years ago, brought to Barbados, and probably enslaved by someone by the name of Lloyd.
No. What did Malcolm X say on names?
What did...
Let me hear what Malcolm X said on names. Because... let me hear what he said. When you talk about names...
So, but you were talking about your name with, great pride.
Mr. O'Connor.
What is your real name?
Malcolm X.
Is that your legal name?
As far as I'm concerned, it's my legal name.
Have you been to court to establish the
I didn't have to go to court to be called Murphy or Jones or Smith. Excuse me for answering you this way.
That's
if
all right.
a Chinese person were to say his name was Patrick Murphy, you would look at him like he's insane, because Murphy is an Irish name, a European name, or the name that has a Caucasian or white background. And a yellow person, Chinese is a yellow man, and he has nothing to do or no connection whatsoever with the name Murphy. And if it doesn't look